All right, so we know there's a lot of big-name quarterbacks in the SEC, Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, but all those guys have high expectations. Maybe we were sleeping on a certain quarterback in A&M and Marcel Reed. So remember he came off the bench to start the second half and ran it up on LSU for the Aggies at a 38-23 win. After that, we were really talking about A&M in November as a potential contender there. Getting a look at his profile, expected to be the starter, Marcel Reed here after Connor Wegman transferred over to Houston. I love how, his first collegiate start, the Florida Gator fan base cannot forget because we were all jazzed up in Gainesville, like, oh, we're going to get the backup in A&M. And Marcel Reed said, I was going to say hold my beer, but I don't know if he can drink beer. I don't know if he's old enough. He beat Florida and made quite the statement in his first collegiate start. So let's dive in to Texas A&M with Texas A&M's beat writer for 247 Sports, Carter Karels, and our college football analyst, Tom Fornelli. We're going to get a season outlook for A&M, starting at the quarterback position. Marcel Reed expected to get the start. We saw it there on the full screen. He might not be in the same conversations as some of those big-name SEC quarterbacks, but Carter, we have seen flashes of what he can do. So are you expecting Reed to make a huge jump this year?
I do, and a lot of it is because he's going to be put in a position to succeed. When you bring back your top 7 offensive line, you bring back your top 4 running backs. Before Le'Veon Moss went down last year, A&M was a top 10 rushing offense in the country. He's back and healthy now. So I think you've got a real high floor with this group when you have an elite running game. And so Marcel Reed doesn't have to be a superstar for this to be a good offense. And I think when you look at what he did last year, the results didn't really look great when you look at the finish and you look at the 8-5 record. But Marcel Reed, there were multiple games where they needed him to deliver, and he did down the clutch. You think of that Florida game when his first start, leading them to a win. But even Arkansas, leading them to a fourth quarter game-winning touchdown drive. He did that multiple times last season, and he did it against Auburn and USC. But the defense is kind of what failed this team down the stretch. And so, yeah, the 1-4 finish didn't look great, but I wouldn't put that on Marcel Reed. It's more on this defense. And so with the right pieces around him, again, I don't know if he's a superstar or a top 3 SEC quarterback or anything like that, but A&M has lacked kind of that stabilizer at quarterback. There's been a lot of injuries. There's been a lot of poor play at the position over the last few years. This is somebody that can stabilize the group, give you a really high floor, and elevate this offense to where it could be pretty good.
Yeah, I look at Marcel Reed as something of an X factor in the SEC this year, because when you look at what Texas A&M has on offense, and we just went over like the returning on the offensive line, one of the best running back groups in the country, and then you throw Reed into that picture. We've seen Mike Elko before he got to Texas A&M. He ran a similar offense at Duke where he had Riley Leonard, a rushing quarterback, and a bunch of good running backs. And it was very effective. But I think the X factor here with Reed is if he can develop as a passer, he doesn't have to be elite. He doesn't have to be a first-round NFL kind of prospect with his arm. But if he can just become a little more dangerous and a little more accurate and cause defenses to have to respect him as a quarterback instead of just a runner going forward, this is a Texas A&M team that has a very high ceiling if he develops into more of a dual threat than more of just a rusher, which is what we mostly saw from him last year. Because I think that as we've gone over, that offensive line is going to be good. The running backs are going to be great. So if you can just get that kind of dynamic element with Reed there, this is a team that's going to be able to score a lot of points every single weekend.
So we're going to talk strengths and then maybe some question marks on this team. And both of you guys already alluded to one of the bigger strengths in the O-line and the running back room. But Carter, kick us off. We'll start with the O-line because we know in this day and age in college football, if you're returning a handful of starters at any position, it's obviously going in the right direction.
Yeah, and you're getting every starter back and your top 2 backups. It is a loaded group. I mean, you look at Trey Zune and Armaj Reed Adams to kick it off. Those are 2 guys that could have been drafted last year, decided to come back. You could make a case that Armaj Reed Adams is the best guard in the country, and Chase Basantis, if he's your second best guard, that's pretty dang good because I think he'll be drafted either next year or the year after that as well. So you've got at least 3 draft picks in that group. Mark Nebu is a guy coming back that's not in that group, but could be your starting center next year. He was the starting center to begin the last season, but suffered a season-ending injury in the season opener with Notre Dame. And so to get those 7 guys back, you don't get that a lot in college football. And, when you hear Mike Elko talk about that group this offseason, he kind of compares them to the 2020 group that Texas A&M had, which was, a top 3 finisher in the Joe Moore Award. And so then you bring in Le'Veon Moss to the group. He was an all-SEC running back last year, second team, and he missed the last 4 games of the season with an injury. So bringing him back, bringing Amari Daniels back, bringing Reuben Owens back. Again, before Moss went down, this was a top 10 rushing offense in the country. And then you add Marcel Reed's legs and what he can do. And Colin Klein, what we know about him as an offensive coordinator, he is special when it comes to the running game. And so I think they're going to be dialing up quite the stuff this year on the ground.
So not a lot of questions about the O-line or the running backs. But, Carter, what are you hesitant about when it comes to this A&M team?
Well, if you look at this defense, they really struggled down the stretch last season in really every way. I mean, they couldn't tackle, they couldn't cover, they couldn't defend the run. It was a big struggle, right? And then you're taking that defense and you're removing 3 of the top players from that group, Nick Gordon, Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart. That whole defensive line got decimated after last year as far as departures go. And so you're replenishing that group with 4 transfers, a couple freshmen, a couple guys who, haven't played or really proven themselves yet. I think the guy to watch up front for them is Cassius Howell. He's somebody, if you watched A&M last year, you might have said, hey, this guy might be just as good as Nick Scort and Shamar Stewart at times, because statistically he was putting up similar numbers, and he was the backup for that group. And so stepping into that starting role, I expect this guy to lead A&M in sacks this year, and I think he'll be a fine player. It's just reloading that group that, was talented but still struggled last year. Can they do that? Obviously, Mike Elko is going to be a lot more involved with this defense, and they think that can be a difference maker with this group. And behind that group, you've got a pretty solid linebacking core in Torian York and Scooby Williams. So they try to make some changes. They try to bring in some new faces. We'll see if it works. But after the way last season finished, definitely a question mark.
Yeah, anytime you lose 3 players like that from your defensive line who all went in the first 65 picks of the NFL draft, it's difficult to replace that talent level and that kind of production. But if I have any reason to be optimistic, is besides Mike Elko's background as a defensive coordinator and a damn good one, when you look at what they've brought in, particularly at the transfers and the returners, it's going to be a veteran unit, even if it's not the most experienced unit. It's a lot of seniors, it's a lot of juniors, and there are a couple of incoming true freshmen who are highly rated out of high school, but they might be able to get onto the field and get some snaps. But you're not looking at a situation where you're going to be overly reliant on young players unless they just earn the right to be out there and outperform the guys ahead of them. So I do think that while there's not the kind of big name potential as far as this defensive line is, it's not household names, I think there's enough guys in there and there's enough depth and enough different people who fit in certain roles that this unit is probably, it's not going to be elite, I wouldn't expect, but I think it's going to be good enough, and I would hope it would be better than, as Carter alluded to, it was at the end of last season when that defense just kind of tailed off.
All right, so this is a squad that went 8-5 last season, 5-3 in SEC play. It's year 2 under Mike Elko. So, Tom, what are you expecting Mike Elko to do in year 2? And give us your schedule prediction for the Aggies.
Yeah, I'm a big Mike Elko fan. I'm a big Colin Klein fan. I've really enjoyed his offenses. And I think going into this season with a clear picture of what they want to do at quarterback, that returning offensive line, those running backs, this is going to be a very good offensive team, so much so that the defense will be good, but it doesn't need to be elite. And I look at this schedule, I think going on the road at Notre Dame is going to be difficult. Going on the road for LSU and Texas will be difficult. But outside of that, I see the Aggies winning these games and taking a big step forward in the year 2 under Mike Elko. And now 9-3, probably won't be good enough to get into the college football playoff, but it will have them in the conversation late into the season, and that would be a big step forward for an A&M and really kind of build momentum and hype going into year 3 under Elko in 2026.
All right, so ultimately Tom sees it 9-3, not making the CFP, but trending in the right direction. And every time I do a segment, everybody always has whatever team we're talking about beating my alma mater. I don't know why that is. Carter, Tom, we certainly
I think you know why that is.
I was going to say. Y'all are sleeping on DJ Lagway. That's not my problem. It literally is not my problem. Okay? The Florida Gators, if you can get some plus money on them to win the Natty, I don't know, maybe you want to look into it. Cover 3 podcast, by the way. Maybe they should have me on.
Maybe they should look into it.
For Florida Gators summer school, because, I don't know, the Cover 3 squad between Danny and Tom, a lot of Florida football doubters out there. The latest episode, by the way, they're diving into Clemson, so you can download, follow, and listen wherever you find your favorite podcasts.